Witchers, welcome back to the Witcher Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots. I'm here with Toasty. And Toasty, we just got together with our patrons. We talked about the entire season, but we hadn't yet gone through the last few episodes specifically. So we're going back to episode 6, baby.
Yep, episode 6, titled "Everybody Has a Plan Till They Get Punched in the Face."
Right. It's a very interesting title. And before we get into this, you and I were talking a little bit in the pre-show. I know you liked the last 3 episodes, and I went into them and I watched them now. And this one's okay. Like episode 5 and 6 were kind of the height of the season. And then, man, we're going to get into 7 and 8 like next time. And it's just not as, I just didn't like them as much, but let me think about specifically why. There were some things that made me go, I don't know if I like these episodes as much, but we'll let that sink in because today we're talking about episode 6. So let's focus on that. So this is the pickup from the mid-season break where they realize that, everything is not what it seems because episode 5, everybody's plotting and the bad guy is somebody else. And that's kind of where it goes from there, right?
Yeah. So, of course, we start immediately from where we pick up with Dijkstra holding a knife to Geralt's throat.
Right. Yeah. Smart move, buddy. Good idea.
Yeah.
Hold the knife at his throat.
So, yeah. Geralt ends up complying with, going with Dijkstra. Though I don't think anybody had any doubt in their mind that if Geralt was interested in getting out of this situation, that he would easily be able to.
Yeah. And even the way Henry Cavill plays the part in that spot, like he's got kind of this smirk on his face, like, okay,
this is the choice you went with.
Let's talk. Like, you really want to do this? And yeah, you can clearly see that he's not worried at all. By Dijkstra.
So he leaves his sword on a side table, and just goes along with him. And we see Yennefer for a second, who looks out of the room and seems to realize that people are gone, the things that are going on. She grabs his sword and then makes an escape through a secret passageway in her room, which is, I guess, convenient and nice to have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess if you know, they're in Aretuza still, right? So yeah, she kind of knows all the little nitty gritty details about where everything is. So yeah, that's fine.
So then we cut to Ciri, who wakes up suddenly and then immediately outside to Jaskier, who seems to be happily sleeping after his night of frivolity with Radovid.
Still kind of weird, but okay.
Yeah, and then Radovid, he's just sitting there waiting for the little force field thing that Yennefer put up to go down, and then heads inside. But Jaskier cuts him off and
shows up, and Ciri's gone by that point, and so they have kind of this little confrontation where Jaskier feels like, okay, so this is really why you did what you did, right?
Mm-hmm. Which is a weird thing because I guess it's just him
realizing
in the moment that this is the whole reason that it was happening. But I don't know, the way it was stated, it seemed like Jaskier was already in on already knew.
Well, he seemed suspicious the whole time, and that was acted throughout the first 5 episodes of the season. It's very clear that he is suspicious that this isn't real and that this doesn't actually mean something. And it's
if you had the suspicion, I don't know, maybe it's just a me thing, but I feel like I wouldn't be able to sleep with a person.
I think he was tempted. I think that's why he was so suspicious, is because he was legitimately tempted.
Okay.
He was there was part of him hoping, okay, maybe this is a real thing. Maybe maybe I really am attracted to this.
Maybe it was a test.
Maybe I really want this to happen. And I think a lot of people can identify with this. You end up in a relationship and you're like, I know this is bad for me, but I really want it to work out, even though every sign tells me warning, warning, warning. And then you go through with it anyway. And I think a lot of people do that. That's a very human thing.
Fair enough. And I wanted to highlight the line that he specifically says.
Yeah.
And he says, "I thought I'd seen through your mask. Turns out there was nothing behind it." And I was like, hey, that's actually pretty good. That's a pretty good line.
Yeah.
It seems like they put all the budget into this line because there's some later dialogue, which is just really bad. So
right. Yeah.
yeah. So come back to Artusa. The Redanians, or the Nazis, have cornered everyone in all of the mages into the one room.
Yeah, and you're saying Nazis because they're all wearing armbands that are very similar to what the Nazis wore in World War II.
It's on the same arm. I looked it up.
The left arm.
It was on the same arm and everything. The same exact positioning. It just had the symbol of Redania rather than a swastika. So it's like, what? Okay. And I looked it up and I couldn't find anything specific. I think I have to read the book to get super concrete, but I looked up the coup on Thanet and did my reading on it, and nothing in anything about it mentions these armbands, I don't think. Mm-hmm. So this was an added choice to just have Nazi symbolism in it, which just seems like a bold choice.
Right. I always try to think through the same thought process they probably went through, and what was the problem they were trying to solve and what were they trying to do? And either they were trying to draw direct correlations between the Redanians and Nazis, which they could have because of the whole racist thing, and it's fair. Or maybe they were trying to show very distinctly who was part of what group, even though they didn't have uniforms. Like the Nilfgaardians show up, everybody wears black. You know they're Nilfgaardians because they're all wearing black. Right.
Yeah, I think it has to be the first one because there's a million ways to symbolize that a group is, we're all a group because we're all wearing the red of Redania or something,
right,
as a thing.
Right.
So it's you have to specifically be pointing towards Nazi, and they do it with the dialogue too, because Philippa specifically says this is a purge, which is okay.
Yeah. That's not good.
That was wild to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, and some of the R2s and mages seem to have sided with them, specifically Kira and Sabrina. And
that has conflict that they deal with later when the rest of the female mages all get back together, and we've got the little seed of the sisterhood thing going on.
But that's that. They get Geralt's opinion on things, and he's kind of I don't really give a shit. I'm just here. And then notices that there seems to be some people. There's a fog coming in.
Mm-hmm. And he's the one who notes it. He's like, "There's a magical fog over the water. What ships are you hiding out there?"
And everyone thinks it's the Redanians. They think it's Redanian reinforcements. Even Dijkstra thinks it's Redanian reinforcements, which we would know that it's not because Applegate never made it to where he was going to. He got killed. Mm-hmm. So assumption is the elves. I mean, they got the bows and arrows and everything going on, and these people in hooded cloaks that are getting onto the island. So of course, those people that have read it, they know it's the Scoia'tael. So
yeah. So the Scoia'tael show up. Surprise.
Yeah. We cut to Yin, who's escaping through the tunnels and runs into Lydia, who's doing weird psychic horror stuff or whatever, whispering in her mind, all freaky.
Right, because she can't talk because of her face is messed up. Yeah,
we get to see that messed up face.
Yeah.
And she seems to pin Yin with magic and is choking her, but Triss saves the day, and then Yin uses the vine that Triss has around her throat to just kill her.
I thought this was a cool moment, especially for people who are fans of the games, a Triss and Yin moment, taking out the bad guy. That was cool. That was really cool.
Yeah, it was nice, and they hug and they have a nice little moment there. And we get but in the other room, the fight has broken out. Tesea shows up and is basically arguing against it. Philippa's bragging about the binding ritual she put on the thing, and Tesea's I wrote the fucking binding ritual, you imbecile. Right. This is my book. So she breaks it, and the fight is fully on the Redanians versus the mages. The mages are just slaughtering them because they have magic. Yeah. So, and Geralt pursues Dijkstra, and we get the ankle breaking scene, which is great.
Yes. Okay, so a few things here. The ankle breaking scene, I think, worked really well. I feel like that was good payoff for Geralt just being patient and then just putting him in his place, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But
Dijkstra tries to he tries to go out of again. It's like, you really have a lot of confidence in this dagger that you have versus
right,
a Witcher, bro.
right.
Like,
yeah, come on, buddy. But then, like, my main complaint about like the big fighting scene, and it happens throughout most of the episode, where you go back to like everybody's fighting, so things are on fire now, and everybody's fighting, is that there was for as good as the choreography can be in this show. So much of that fighting was it felt like everyone just had their feet pinned to the spot they were in the room on the ground, right? Mm-hmm. Like everyone was just like, okay, don't move from this spot. Just do a lot of like magic-y spell motions, or swing your sword a lot, or shoot your bow a lot. But nobody move until like a specific character is supposed to move from one place to another, but then plant your feet and stay there. It felt like, and you and I have both been playing Baldur's Gate, it felt like Baldur's Gate turn taking is what that felt like.
Fair.
Like, and that kind of pulled me out of it. I was like, this could have had so much cool action and everybody moving around in the background. But if you just look at the scene as a whole, everyone's just kind of stuck in place, and it just it felt a little limited. And maybe that's a budget thing. Maybe that's they were just wanted to focus on the main characters.
I imagine it's a budget thing because there was a lot going on in this episode, and I have to imagine all the effects and stuff they were using for the magic is probably a harder thing to like bring into motion, because it's easy whenever the magic effect is going from point A to point B, but if it's like the point A is a moving target as they're making the effect happen, I have to imagine that the budget or if the
background's too busy, like if there's too much motion in the background and like you don't have a good clean plate for putting that magical effect on top of, because you had multiple takes of the people in the foreground, like I can imagine it's a complex thing. I don't think this is something easy to do. So when it does come across in shows or movies and it just looks easy, then it's because it took a lot of work, right? So I mean, it didn't ruin the scenes. It just felt a little TV action rather than like a movie scene.
Yeah, and speaking of like Baldur's Gate D&D stuff, I'll have some things on that whenever we get to it.
Okay.
I'm over here specifically calling out D&D spells as they're happening because they look like D&D spells. But anyways, yeah, so the elves are like waiting in the tunnels, and then Vilgefortz goes and lets them in, and the truth about him comes out to Tissaia. She confronts him, and he's like, oh yeah, no, it's the Scoia'tael that are here, and they're going to fight in the name of the White Flame, and I never actually really cared about you. It was just an easy manipulation game.
Right. Like, you're an idiot, bro, and I'm finally able to do all the things I've been waiting to do, like that kind of whole thing.
Yeah.
And at that point, and I know your opinion, especially once we get to like the Geralt fight and all of that kind of like decline, like his dialogue just gets worse and worse. But at that point, I felt like, ooh, rough. Now, okay, that was definitely a like rough moment. Yeah, right. The dialogue was good there, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, but so the Scoia'tael enter. We see, Francesca and Cahir and the rest of Filavandrel, and then the mages come in behind Tissaia. And we get like the lineup scene with the mages, behind Tissaia, all of the elves behind Francesca. And then Tissaia summons a wall of force specifically, to which we find out that the elves have dimeridium tipped arrows, which just cut through the magic.
Yep.
Which is like, that is very smart to bring that kind of thing in. You're going to be fighting mages. What better to use against them than the anti-magic material?
It makes sense that they would have prepared it. It also makes sense from a writing standpoint, like why you couldn't just explain as like, well, yeah, the mages absolutely tore them apart, right? Like they're mages. They can just make things happen with their minds. Like, come on. But the idea that like these elves have fought against magic users before, and so they have some tools at their disposal to help them out, kind of evens the odds and makes it a little bit more realistic, or at least palpable that it could happen that way.
Yeah, so big start of combat scene here. We cut away to Ciri and Yennefer, who find each other
way far away. Look, the season keeps doing this, where like they've solved the traveling, close. Like the teleporting horse travel stuff. But what they keep doing is having like Ciri run off into the wilderness, or Yen run off into the wilderness, and like end up like 3 miles away from where they were, but then somehow running into each other.
I would say they're not 3 miles away. Like I'm assuming that this is the path that lead. Like this is how you get to Aretuza, like the main trail.
But it just feels like it's in the middle of nowhere.
It's just weird. It is very weirdly in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, they run into each other, and I think that this part was like a nice like moment between them, hugging, reconnecting, mother-daughter. Series like, when we got to find Geralt, and Yennefer's like, no, he always finds us. And I was like, this is cute.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
He does though.
I know.
He straight up does.
Right.
Though.
Right.
So back to the action. I guess goodbye, Philavandra.
Yeah, dude just gets like, he just turns into jelly. Like just
dude becomes jelly.
It's another one of those things that we talked about last week, where like, I mean, they popped him, but the amount of viscera that just comes out
was so crazy.
It's like he was just a bag of blood. Yeah.
It was so wild, and
it ends up all over Francisca's face, and like
Francesca's like covered in her husband, and like Artorias tries to take the advantage of like her shock to like finish her, but Fringilla, who apparently became a part of this troop with the Scoia'tael at some point,
right.
Without Francesca knowing, by the way. Francesca had no idea that she was here, because later she's like gonna see her.
Super weird, because it feels like there's a total of maybe 30 or 40 people in the group. So like, how did you not notice?
Like, how do you make this happen? Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
But Fringilla like telekinesis is a dagger into her uncle. This is her uncle. She kills him. He's dead.
And he's had some, I guess that plays out in a way where like he's had some good moments where he seems to have stood up, even though he's been kind of a pain in the past. He stands with the good mages at the right times. So he's kind of had that little bit of a redemption thing going on. And then we have the whole like, okay, well, this is how petty or whatever vengeful she is, that she decides to kill him. So
which is like, I guess it's like, as a revenge thing, it's like, it's kind of merited. He did like send her off to like Nilfgaard, which is a terrible place for mages, because they make them do like, really dangerous dark magic. And then what specifically, the Francesca enters her Carrie era, like the movie Carrie.
Yeah, right.
She's just covered.
She's covered in blood, and she's just like,
stuff. They make her do like things creepily, like she shuts all the doors by like looking at them or whatever, and then she looks up, like it's like the freaky like twitchy looks to the doors. They all close, like freaky stuff. She looks up, and like the ring of fire from like that fire chandelier is like in her eye, specifically not centered, which I was kind of annoyed with, but whatever. Like it's like kind of like, it's like below the pupil. I didn't like it. I was like, you could have put this perfectly in her pupil, but I guess not. And it comes crashing down, and everything turns into like apocalypse scenario at this point.
It's all on fire, and everything's even crazier.
Cut back to the middle of nowhere with Yennefer and Ciri and Riance, who shows up to like get her. Ciri like engages on him, has like some really cool like sword blade thing. Like she like specifically, there's a part where she like flips the sword, and I was like, that looks hard as fuck. Like that looks really hard to do. Which I thought was cool. And then he's just like, no, we're not gonna do this. Ring of fire like around her. Stop this. And Yennefer like eats the sword over there to Geralt, who perfectly emerges from behind Riance to just decapitate him.
Yeah, it was the coordination was cool between everything, but it felt a little anticlimactic in that, like, okay, now he's just dead. Like,
like I thought it was a cool sequence, but it's also like Riance is dead.
Right.
And like in the books, he's not supposed to be dead. So like,
and you also don't get any like monologue or anything right at the end. Like, Geralt could have stabbed him through the chest and then like leaned around and looked at him in the face, and he could have said like had some like final something like, it was all worth it, all the he
got his monologue of like, no one controls my strings or whatever the heck it is,
right.
So but like, I'm kind of okay with that whenever you have a villain that's just like not like, there's nothing like real redeemable about it. Like I see this a lot like with like Demon Slayer, the anime Demon Slayer, where like some of the demons like had really poor circumstances that brought them into the situation. Like the reason they became demons like was because of really like horrible shit that happened.
Yeah.
And then there's some that just have no like, and they have remorse about it. Like you get like the crazy, like the flashback after they're dead of like the situation that got them here and like why it's so terrible. And it's like, yeah, that really sucks. And I feel for this demon. And then there's some that deserve no remorse and like you don't get it, like,
and that's Ryance,
and they just straight up kill them, and it's like, this is good. And granted, they only really get the flashbacks whenever they're killed by the main character. Otherwise, you really don't. But it's like, I didn't want to see this character's remorseful backstory, and you didn't show it to me, and I'm happy about it. And so I'm like, I'm happy you don't get a monologue.
Sure, it makes sense. It makes sense. If anything, it would have been like, maybe there was more information they could have gotten out of him, but at that point, I guess maybe they didn't need it. So
I mean, they didn't need it. They knew that Vilgefortz was the one pulling his strings,
right?
So like,
but you've got other questions, like what else is there going on out there? Like what else do we not know about? But he probably wouldn't answer the questions anyway.
Vilgefortz is going to tell Geralt all of those answers later.
That's true.
It's all good.
That's true.
So yeah, he did. We cut back to the fight. Everything's burning. People are dying. Tahir's fighting some like random mage sword wielder dudes, which we see like a good chunk of like in this, and it's like, seems very unimportant. Also, he's supposed to be like an incredible like swordsman, and these guys are kicking his ass for the most part. Like,
yeah.
All right. Yeah, we get more combat sequences. Istrid and Marty shows up out of nowhere. Who the heck is Marty? So yeah. But they just run through these guys through this hallway, which it seems like that's like a thing that's kind of coming about a lot in like modern stuff. It's like, don't fight certain characters in hallways. Don't fight Darth Vader in a hallway. Don't fight Luke Skywalker in a hallway. Apparently, don't fight Darth Maul in a hallway. Back for the Clone Wars. Yeah. And now it's like, don't fight Istrid in a hallway. So I just thought it was funny that it was specifically a hallway. And then we get Fringilla's rousing speech, which I didn't care about. I'm gonna be straight honest, I didn't care about at all. But apparently it's what Francesca needed to hear.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
But yeah, and you specifically asked the question, who is Marty? Because we see her like join up with Triss and Istrid here, and they like come across like an arcanely locked door, and they just rip that shit open in like a badass manner. And it's like, yeah, she just showed up out of nowhere. Who is she? What importance does she have? For the show? I'm pretty sure she's not going to have any. They just decided to bring her in this part, and there she is. But specifically, she has a little bit of information on her that I figured, why not talk about? Because I don't think we're ever going to see this character again, and there's not enough to do an episode on her in the first place. So Marty is a sorceress in The Witcher, specifically known for her healing. Apparently she's like primarily a healer and is very talented at it, and is also very talented at seduction and the things associated with it, so much so that she created aphrodisiacs in this universe. I thought that was funny. But yeah, so she's at the Thanad Coup with everyone else, and I should say her actual name, Marty Sodergren is her name. She is here with everyone else, and actually, I don't think, or she doesn't actually in the show talk to Geralt at all, but specifically, she does come up to Geralt and Yennefer during the banquet before that we had, and then after the coup, or on the coup, she tries to save Hin Gidimdith, which I think is the old wizard. I think it's not the same.
Oh,
name,
yeah, the old guy.
but I think that it's the same. It's going to be, that's the same guy that they're, when his heart gave out. And we see him later in the episode having a heart attack.
Right in the middle of the battle. Yeah.
Terrible time to have a heart attack. And then later on, she specifically goes to talk to Geralt to give him the shortest route to Garstang, which I don't think is going to come up in the show either. And basically tells, she talks to Geralt a few times to help him with things. She fixes someone's broken lung. And she's kind of just funny because she's supposed to be just like a primary seductress in this. And I'm wondering, because there's a later battle, the Battle of Brenna, that she's supposed to come back as later as well.
So maybe this is like a glimpse of a character before we see more of her later.
Maybe. I'm trying to see what they're going to do with her. I think they just had like a named sorceress who I'm pretty sure is, I can't remember. I think she joins the Sisterhood or the Lodge because, I mean, she's a female wizard or female mage. So I don't know, but maybe we'll bring her back later. But it's just weird that she showed up out of nowhere, did a bunch of badass shit.
Yeah.
And maybe might show up later.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it's kind of out of nowhere.
I just thought it was cool. Like she just shows up, starts whooping ass, and I'm like,
well, all right.
Okay.
Cool.
What's up, Marty? I guess.
Yep. So there you go. A little mini episode about a character who barely shows up in the books, but now is in the
She
show.
shows up here in the books. And a little bit later.
That's about it. All right. Well, we've got more to talk about with this battle and everything else that happens in the rest of the episode. But first, we have to go thank our patrons. So we will be right back.
Very well. Let us get this over with. Something has infested my vineyard.
Mm-hmm. Great. Let me go prepare my something oil then.
All right. Now it's time to thank our patrons. We couldn't do the show without you, so thank you for all of your support. And big shout outs to our higher vampires, Ben of Temeria and Jared M. Thank you for your support, and to all the rest of our patrons. Thank you so very much. If you are interested in supporting the show, if you're interested in getting t-shirts and stickers, ad-free episodes, whatever other stuff we have on there, then go to patreon.com/Witcher Lorecast in order to check everything out. Also, if you'd like to help us out in other ways, one way to do that is to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Even if you don't listen on Apple Podcasts, if you have an Apple account, you can still leave a review. And that would be super helpful to us. Plus, we'll read it out on a future episode of the show so you can get your words on the show. But thank you to everybody for your support. And let's get back to the rest of the episode.
You smell of death and destiny, heroics and heartbreak.
It's onion.
Right, yeah.
All right, Toasty. So now we're back to the battle, and Tissa's having a tough time of it.
Yeah, she's having a tough time. She's kind of like disassociating from the fight. Mm-hmm. Things are not going great. I don't know, like at this state, I wouldn't really say anyone's winning at all. Like it.
Right. But
it seems like everything's pretty evenly matched. So
yeah, but she just had one of the people that she trusted the most in the world, who she was in love with, found out that he was betraying her and doing terrible stuff. Now her home is under siege, and everything that she's worked for is potentially going to be ruined. Like there's a lot of like emotional turmoil going on inside of her. So
yeah,
this kind of comes to a head in the battle scene here.
Yeah. So but like. Yeah, we can't tell really who's winning. She's like leaves the fight.
Yeah, she kind of wanders off.
Yeah, we get Kira and Sabrina and a collection of other mages who aren't important. Basically, like, you know, come up and say, like, we thought we were doing the right thing, but we're going to fight for our home or whatever. And they like switch sides back to the mage's side, I guess, rip off their armbands. Though I will say that Sabrina took longer to take hers off. Like Kira and the rest of them rip off their armband as they're saying they're going to fight for their home. And then Sabrina like does it after the speech.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, is this significant of like her loyalty still being questionable? Or is she just that dumb of a person that like she didn't realize it? She's like, oh, wait, I should probably do this too. Like, who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that there's a strong way to interpret that one way or the other.
Yeah. And like in the same spot, like, because Istrid is basically trying to like to kind of rally Tissaia back into things or whatever, but Tissaia is just kind of like she's super out of it. And then we get a moment with Triss and Istrid that's like
Tristrid. Yeah, you have that in here in the notes. Yeah,
because I mean it works. What that's a really good like that's their names go together.
It works really well. Yeah,
but also like he like puts his forehead to hers and says like he can't lose her, and I'm like,
yeah, are they shipping her? Is this going to be a thing?
Are they shipping them? Maybe. Is this a thing they're doing?
Maybe. I mean, he's one of the few guys in the show, although he's kind of a big dork at times. Like, he's a good guy. Like, for the most part. Like, if you're going to pair Triss, who we like, up with any of the guys, who else is there?
Yeah, and I can't blame her if she does. Like, you know, like he's super attractive dude as well. But it's like it leaves me wondering because like they don't kiss or anything, so it's not like anything concrete. But it's kind of like
it may be a mutual respect thing. I mean, sometimes when you're with, I mean, sometimes you develop a relationship that's more like siblings because you've been around each other and you've got a lot of respect for each other and those kinds of things. And that can be that kind of thing too. You can see a little bit of that same kind of emotion in one or the other. So I don't know. Well, I guess we'll have to see where that goes.
Yeah. So Tissaia makes her way up to like her balcony and starts to conjure Alzor's thunder, which Yennefer out in the middle of fucking nowhere with the rest of with Ciri and Geralt notes this and says like, oh shit, that's what she's doing. And Ciri says a spell of a last resort, which makes me believe that that's like I can do the spell, but I die in the process kind of thing.
Or it's so dangerous that if you don't do it perfectly, maybe it backfires. Like you don't ever try it unless you're in dire need to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that's the thing. Which like we specifically see her casting it. She doesn't actually do like any like incantations for it or whatever, which does like detach it a little bit. What makes me wonder what the last resort part of it is, because specifically it is a spell in the Witcher universe that specifically made by the wizard Alzor, and it is a complicated magic spell which produces a bolt of lightning that can kill its target. So it seems like it's supposed to be like a smaller scale thing, but she's kind of doing it like a huge scale. And Yennefer comments at one point that only someone with superior diction and oratory skills of Alzor could even attempt it. Which makes me wonder if like just the incantation of it is so like precise. Yeah, and that's the reason for it.
Right, and dangerous if you fail it. Like you mispronounce a word and all of a sudden you get hit by lightning or something.
But because in the show no words are spoken at all, now it like changes like what the cost of it is.
Sure.
And we'll see that there's a bit of a cost later, though it doesn't seem like it's that extreme, but I don't know.
It's maybe free hair dye.
Yeah. So Yennefer basically like has to split because she needs to go save her mom, Tissaia. Mm-hmm. But Ciri needs to get the hell out of here because she's in the middle of like ground zero for everyone that wants her. The elves want her, the Nilfgaardians want her, Vilgefortz everyone wants her. So she needs to leave. And we do like, I do think this here was like my favorite part of the season. This like splitting moment because of how like I guess it was the peak of like the Ciri Yennefer relationship, and I thought it was like incredibly sweet. The like I love you, my daughter, calling her daughter. I was like, I love this. This is great.
Yeah. It follows that they've been building to a moment like this. So yeah.
So which for I guess that maybe does say something. Like even though I enjoyed the season. It's still like, this is the favorite moment. So it shows you the standard that we're seeing in the season, I guess. Or maybe I'm just a sap. That's probably the case.
Well, I mentioned this when we started going through this season, that like part of my dilemma is I just like the characters so much, so that when they have good character moments, I'm like, even though that last scene I watched was super dumb, I can't not like the characters. Oh, this is great. You know, like I'm split between like bad storytelling or weird moments that don't really make sense versus like just seeing the characters that I like, you know, and it's kind of a balance thing.
Yeah, it's okay though. We're gonna get weird moments later. Don't worry about it. All right. So Fringilla and Cahir see each other for the first time since like the end of last season. Fringilla basically tells Cahir that he needs to like it's crazy the things that you can accomplish when you start to think for yourself. Basically telling him like, hey, you need to think for yourself and stop being the Emperor's lapdog. Yeah. Which we know is going to start like spiraling his character arc to the points that it's supposed to go to, rather than being the Emperor's lapdog anymore. Tissaia lets off the spell and just starts incinerating people with these massive lightning bolts, which I thought that like the presentation of the spell was pretty cool. Like she's using like the Torlara as like a conduit. So like the lightning comes through from the sky, conduits through Torlara,
the tower,
into Tower of the Gull, into like Aretuza, and even conduits through these like 2 points on her balcony, and then starts like funneling into her and then into the people. Like the mini conduits here I thought was pretty cool. And like I can honestly believe, because of the character that Tissaia is, honestly believe that she thought she might have to use this spell one day and specifically design the structure for it. I can see that. Because she's an incredibly intelligent character. She would, because those, like I said, there's those 2 focal points on her balcony, which maybe she just uses it as conduits for spells in general, like amplifying it, right? Which makes sense, but like it seemed like specifically made for this. Vilga or Istrid, of course we know Istrid. He's going after the Book of Monoliths. That's all he cares about is the monoliths. He gets the book out of like, I think, Tissaia's room, I think, is because I think she took it. It's like a mix of their stuff, I think. Yeah, and then Vilgefortz is there behind him and then yeets him away. We're not going to see Istrid for the rest of the season. Where the hell did he go? I don't know. I imagine they'll bring him back for next season.
He's lost in a desert somewhere, maybe.
Maybe. It would make sense, but he's just gone.
We get a whole Istrid in the desert episode. Oh God,
that would be wild and amazing. That would be great. I'm all for it. We get Artad, who served no other purpose. We have not seen him at all except during the banquet when he made the "I'm so drunk, I'm making an embarrassment of myself" distraction for Yennefer. That's all he did. And now all of a sudden he's like this menacing dude who wants to kill Dijkstra very badly, and decides to make jokes about it. This was weird. This is a weird moment for me.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this moment either.
Yeah, but it's fine. He gets owled in the face. Violently. By Philippa, which, damn. Like, I know that she's like kind of bloodthirsty, but like for an owl to do the damage that we're presuming is happening, for the blood flying and like her hand being coated in it when she turns back into her like human form, which also like, wouldn't it be on her feet because they're like her?
Yeah, the wings would be like the hands, the feet would be the talons. Yeah, that is a little weird.
Hand, you know, but like, you know, we'll not think about it.
And she's not particularly careful with Dijkstra when she helps him up, even though he's got a broken arm and a leg.
It's fine because he likes pain.
Right. I was like,
they had to remind us about that one.
Yeah, we have to do that.
And now we get Geralt and Ciri trying to get down to like the beach, and we get the Ciri Cahir confrontation, where she's like wailing on him violently. He throws down his sword because he doesn't want to fight because he's He's now thinking for himself. He's a changed man.
That is a quick turn. Yeah, this is one of those moments I was like, well, that's a really fast turn. And on top of that, he's felt guilty about this all this time.
We know that he's been having like those like troubling dreams. Like you can see that like the seeds of him feeling guilty. And I think he started to feel really guilty after like the Emperor made him kill the unimportant guy, Robbie Amel's character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Made him kill that guy, and he felt really bad about it.
Right. Okay. So like, I mean, maybe they've been building to it, and I just haven't really paid attention to it. I don't think they
made a good enough point to like point out that he's been feeling guilty about it. But like the clues are there.
Right.
It's just like it doesn't come off as quickly because like he's literally doing the Emperor's like wishes right like a second before this.
Yeah.
But yeah, he feels guilty. He wants to repent. He wants her to kill him. He wants the last face he sees to be Ceres, the lion cub of Sintras, the princess. It comes off so creepy.
Yeah.
In the books, he does like change to like want to do things for like good things on Ceres' behalf because he's in love with her. And I guess I was just really hoping that they weren't going to do that, but it looks like they are going to do that. And he's like a grown ass man in love with she's like,
in the books, she's younger than she is here, but in the show,
like,
she's
I think
still
she's like for her age that she's supposed to be. I think she's supposed to. It's 14 or 16 and it's still gross.
Like, yeah. I think in the show, they're pushing her closer to older teen. But still, you're still a child then. Come on.
It's weird. So it feels weird, but like the Scoia'tael like show up some more, or the Redanians. I can't remember. I wasn't paying close enough attention to who rides up. And he basically tells them to get out of here and he'll like hold them off.
Right.
And like, that's the last we're going to see of him this season, I believe. So,
and then we get the Stregobor moment, your favorite moment for good old Stregobor.
Yeah, they like, it feels like a fucking like redemption moment, and I hate it.
Right,
but it's okay because like the things he's saying are really fucked up and racist.
Right, it's like his racism finally becomes useful.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
But it's not. That's not good. Like, that's just like he helps the characters that we care about get away by finally getting to be his true racist self, and that's just not satisfying. That's just not great.
You like to read what I write on the paper. You want to read what I wrote specifically?
So someone give Stregobor an armband, please. Time to unleash maximum racism.
Yeah, this dude's like, hey, look, there's a bunch of elves. I can purge them with fire.
Oh God, yeah.
he's unleashing his full like Nazi here. It's like it's ridiculous.
By cooking them.
Yeah. He like explodes into fire.
Right.
And even says some shit like Falca will be waiting for you. As we know, Falca's rebellion. Which we'll get to talk a bit more about that next episode.
Right.
But yeah, so it's whatever, but it lets the rest of the mages get away. I guess
it is. I mean, it makes sense for who the character is, but it doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
But then we get back to Geralt.
Yeah, Geralt and Ciri, they find a boat, and then Geralt's medallion starts going off, which signals him that like magic danger is nearby, and so he's like, "Okay, Ciri, you got to go." And she's like, "No, we're gonna get separated again." And then he says, "Like never lost, always found," which I thought was stupid.
It plays out a little bit later too, but
it's fine. It makes sense to Geralt, the dude who doesn't actually know how to like say comforting things.
Right.
It's fine. It seems like a Geralt line. It's a dumb line for dialogue, but it's understandable for Geralt to say this because he's not exactly a personable person. So I'll take it, I guess. But it was just weird. It was like, what? Okay, cool. And then she runs off towards Torlara, the Tower of the Gull. And we get the trailer shot of Geralt like pulling his sword out of his back sheath, the glimmering like green gem on the handle. and we find out who he's going up against is Vilgefortz, which, I knew that this was happening. I knew this scene was what that was going to be pointing towards. And we get the fight between Geralt and Vilgefortz. And like the fighting part is pretty good.
The choreography is cool.
Yeah, the choreography is good, except for a couple moments which are weird, like the time when Vilgefortz bamps the staff from right hand, left hand, right hand, left, like that weird part.
It teleports the staff between his hands. Yeah, I don't know. It worked. They do it enough so you start to catch on. Like, okay, he's able to block everything.
When I first saw this scene, I thought this fight was really dumb. Like I thought the whole staff thing or whatever. I knew that the staff was part of it. I thought the teleporting thing or whatever, I thought that was real dumb, gimmicky. But this time around, as I was paying attention to it, it was actually, this actually requires quite a bit of coordination and shows how formidable of a combatant Vilgefortz is.
Right. Even though we saw him get his butt kicked in season 1 by Cahir, right?
Yeah. So
that still feels a little weird to be okay, well, how did he reach power level 10,000 or whatever?
He's been training it in secret. That makes sense because I think it's been a significant amount of time since that fight.
Yeah. I
don't know how many, but it's been years. It's definitely been years since that fight. So he's had time to practice, train or whatever. So the fighting's good. The choreography is good.
Okay. So what about the dialogue?
Dialogue is fucking stupid. Yeah, I specifically the one line that I have here or whatever, and I wrote it in the same manner, the internet memes or whatever, when you get a real dumb like idiot on the internet and people make fun of it by putting the capital and lowercase letters alternating or whatever.
Yep.
I wrote, "You like my staff," specifically in that way because that's the dumbest line of the season.
Yes, that was pretty dumb. The fight is pretty cool. Geralt gets beat down, which there's still something about that doesn't feel right. I feel like they could have had Geralt do more and maybe get a hit in, or maybe I don't know, drink a potion down real quick because he felt okay, crap, this is going wrong. I need to buff myself or something. He kind of just kept going at him. He
doesn't have his stuff with him, so I don't
maybe that's it.
I don't think he was at any preparation point where he was I need to prepare potions to
right
for this situation.
And Vilgefortz turns his sign usage back on him, which is cool.
He can reverse the sign usage. He's also using actual spells with it as well.
You know what might have actually saved this for me and put it in the I feel better about it category is if Vilgefortz had said something I knew one of these days I'd be coming up against a Witcher. I've been preparing for this. Something like that. Just makes me go oh, he's studied the Witchers. He knows what signs they use, so he knows how to cancel them. He understands how they move.
He doesn't say that, but to be fair, if he specifically knew the information of he's trying to get after Ciri and he knows Ciri's under Geralt's protection.
Right. So I've been training.
Been training specifically to fight Geralt.
Right. I just wish he would have said it. I knew someday you would get in between me and Ciri. So I've been preparing for this moment. And then that makes you go, oh crap. Okay. He's not just working at being a better fighter. He's working at fighting Witchers. That's a different thing.
Yeah, that's fair. And it definitely, I think, unless you put the pieces together that way, it would come off as when he's it's weird that he's this good.
Yeah.
So, but I'm more okay with it because specifically he does get his ass beat in the books too.
Yeah. I mean, it has to go this way. I think they probably could have, I don't know,
made it be more believable,
made it a little bit more obvious as to why.
Because Geralt's also bodied every other person he's come across.
Geralt,
all the witches that died to all those basilisks, and he just easily kills it in a few seconds. So
he takes on everything. We haven't seen him really struggle in a fight yet.
But he gets beat. Yeah, he gets his ass beat. I think Vilgefortz breaks his spine.
Yeah, we get almost like a Dark Knight moment that plays out in the rest of the episodes where it seems like his back is broken. It's somehow he has to get over that. You know, it's like,
Yeah, he definitely like has like gotten some broken ribs or something. He's like, it's I think he broke his spine, which like normally like regular people don't come back from that, but because he's a Witcher and has like advanced healing, that like he can actually like recover from this. It's just, this is something that's going to take time. But normally
it still raises the question of like, why not just kill him? Like, if you know you won and you know you need him not to come back and be a nuisance anymore, then you're the bad guy. Just freaking kill the dude. You know, like, just stick your staff through his head.
Study Witchers enough,
I guess, but like you had him down
them in the sense of fighting, but not in the sense of like the things that they can do or whatever.
But like, you know, he's not dead. You know, maybe he's incapacitated, but you know he's not dead. So like, finish him off. Like, I don't know. Just like maybe John Wick shoots a dude in the leg and then shoots him in the head because he needs to make sure the dude's dead, you know, not just bleeding out on the floor.
That's fair.
Yeah. Anyway, so they get into the tower, right? He follows Ciri into the tower.
Vilgefortz is like doing like the like sinister, evil, like walk up behind her kind of thing or whatever.
Right.
Like the slow chase. And Ciri like goes in and like there's like the tower's like whispering to her, like showing her like these runes and stuff. And like she activates it somehow, you know, with her like elder blood or whatever. It's not really like a clear, like, oh, this is what she's doing. Like she's just interacting with it and it activates it. And they cause a big Galaga explosion.
Galaga explosion.
So it explodes, right? There's a specific part, and it has detached me from this every single time because when she like interacts, the explosion happens, and you hear like a digital sound effect, like the dee-dee-dee-dee, like in the middle of the explosion. It sounds like when you're shooting the gun in Galaga, or something like that. Right. It sounds like what you would put on like an 80s like retro sci-fi thing.
Yeah.
Like the sound effect for the laser guns. And I'm like,
yeah, that's a little weird. That is a little weird.
It was so weird to like hear that in the middle of everything. Everything else is fine about it, but just that part is like, huh?
Yeah. I mean, this whole scene is a little bit like, okay, what's really happening here? What? And then big explosion, right? And
apparently the explosion is so, I'm not sure if the explosion is so big or what if like maybe if Vilgefortz actually did this or I can't remember, but like I think it's the explosion that knocks Geralt into the water, which it didn't seem like it was that close to the explosion.
Yeah, the distances of the outdoor areas is a little bit inconsistent.
Like he's on the beach, obviously, so he's weird. Still fairly close, but like Torlara is very tall.
Yeah.
And he's on like the bot. Like I have to imagine there's like stories between them. I don't think the concussive wave and like, I mean, unless it was just that big of an explosion, but it didn't.
To somebody who's already laying down on the ground, like it would take a lot to move you.
But it knocks him into the water. But luckily, Triss saves him. I guess she conveniently is in the right spot to see him in the water sinking.
Yeah. It feels like a dramatic moment that wasn't needed, but okay. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, and then we like kind of cut to like the final things of like, you know, the last little like dramatic shots that we're seeing of everyone reacting to things as the like to the explosion as it's happening. Francesca, you're right there on the beach. Please go take a dip and clean yourself off.
Like that. It also hit me as well. Like if you have all that grime on your face, you're at least going to like wipe your eyes. So it like even if there was still grime on like her forehead or maybe parts of her cheeks or her neck or something, like there would have been moments where she was like pushing it off her face. Because it drips in your eyes, right? Like, I mean, heck, you go outside for a jog and you get sweaty, you wipe the sweat off your face, right? Like, that's just normal. But she's still just walking around completely drenched in like jelly. Like, what? What?
Like you said, that last part, she's like right there in the cove, like 10 feet away from the water. Like, you just at least go take a dip. Please wash your face, at least like something. Please clean yourself off because I can't.
Yeah. And then
the Tower of the Gull collapses to reveal it's not like super clear because it's really far away. We only see it from far away, but what I believe to be a monolith.
Right, which plays into why Ciri was able to do a thing in the tower and what was calling out to her or whatever. So, yeah. All right, so that was episode 6, and I mean, clearly there are some issues with it. Obviously, there's still some issues with this season. In my estimate, the next 2 episodes just get worse from here. Like, the height of the season was episode 5, and then it's just not as good from this moment on. But Toasty, I'm interested to see what your thoughts are on the next 2 episodes. So we'll discuss that in the future. And what are your final thoughts on this one?
It was just weirdly placed. Like, it's a weirdly placed thing because it's quote our like hiatus premiere. Like, it's not the season premiere, but it's the first one we get for part 2,
right?
And it feels like a finale. Like, it straight up everything ends in the same like structure as like any like TV dramatic finale with all these cliffhangers. Like, Ciri explodes the tower. What happened to her? What happened to Vilgefortz? What's going to happen to Geralt? His spine's broken. What's going to happen to, like, everyone's seeing these things? What's going to happen seems like the question.
Right. And then the next two episodes feel like,
because we're going to get the answers.
Well, we're going to do a little bit of this, and then we'll have a little bit of this, and then everybody's worried about where Ciri is, but nobody's really looking anywhere. They just keep on having meetings. Like, what? I don't know. We'll talk about that when we get there. But yeah, that's our summary for episode 6. Toasty, you have anything else you want to share before we head out?
Yeah. I do the Cyberpunk Lorecast, as well as the Cyberpunk Red live play podcast, Cyberpunk 'D, with the Fumbling For an Almighty Crit Gang. Both of those are, I mean, I'm sure that we're going to start seeing some interesting things coming up with the Cyberpunk, because now with the release of Danger Gal, we got even more info there. And we're going to talk about that, of course, with on the Cyberpunk Lorecast.
And the new DLC for the game
for it. So
yeah,
and then the new DLC for the game. We're going to have a lot going on over there. So
yeah, awesome stuff. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. We're between Baldur's Gate, Starfield, and the big update for Cyberpunk. Within like just 2 months, we're gonna have like a ton of stuff to play.
I feel like I don't have enough time for all of this.
Yeah, if you're into RPG stuff, this is awesome. So go check that stuff out. All the links that you need are at robotsradio.net. So that includes my shows as well, and lots of other shows from other hosts. So if you're looking for more podcasts, go check that out. But that's going to do it for this week. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And we'll try to get through. Do you think we can knock out the last 2 episodes? Because Desert episode just kind of drags. Like, I bet we can get through that pretty quick.
Probably.
Yeah. So maybe we'll do the next 2 episodes on the next episode. And then we'll get back to other Witcher lore stuff. So stay tuned for that. And until then,
stay safe on the path.
See you all later. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Witcher Lorecast. We'd love to hear about your experiences with the games and the books and the TV series and all your thoughts on everything. Please check out the Robots Radio Discord and follow us on Twitter at Witcher Lorecast.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.